If you know somebody who's recently been laid off from a job or maybe even terminated, I encourage you to have them watch this video. It's an excerpt from a longer video interview I did with Matt Warzel, who's a job search coach and just all around good guy. I came across Matt's work in an interview that he did with Virginia Franco in her podcast. And I was just really impressed with both the useful information he shared and just his authenticity. And so in this excerpt, he talks about some of the strategies and guiding principles he used to deal with the mental health side of being laid off from a job. And if you've ever had that experience, you know that that's a challenge. And as you probably also know, how important it is to be able to keep our spirits up, even though we're going through a really difficult time, because our emotional state has a profound impact, not only how we come across in networking conversations and certainly in job interviews, number one. So if we come across as mildly depressed or maybe a little angry and resentful, that's going to leak out in our conversations and turn people off. Also, if we've lost our confidence, that also gets communicated at a very subtle, sometimes conscious and very much unconscious level, and affects how people see us. Also, since our emotional state affects how we literally see the world, emotions affect perception. That if we're feeling really down and ashamed and less than other people, that's going to affect our ability to see opportunities, to be able to recognize our talents and strengths and gifts and the way that we would be a great catch with the next employer. If our emotional state is really negative, we're not able to see that. All we're able to see is our flaws, our mistakes, and how hard it is to engage in a job search. So without belaboring the why any more than I am, let's watch this. It's more of a conversation at this part of the interview, because I've been very deeply interested and involved in the resilience field for over 30 years, both personally and professionally. So I share some of the ideas that I found and practices I found over the years to be really useful. So let's dive into this video. Yeah. Can you, whatever you're comfortable sharing, that and again, as I alluded to in the beginning, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you, because we both have had experiences and work with a lot of people where it feels like their world got upended. And like, how do you both things that you found helpful to kind of get back on track, as well as what are things that you did to sort of soldier on? Because like life goes on, whether we're depressed, anxious, feeling bitter and resentful about getting fired or whatever it is. Whatever you're willing to share about that, I think people would find really helpful.
Absolutely. I think it's first thing is don't overthinking is what you're trying to not do when you're trying to battle that kind of anxiety. So start simple and don't overthink what that first day would be like. The first day should be, I'm going to read 15 minutes of a self-help book, or I'm going to meditate and try to learn what meditation is, or I'm going to go on a run and start my diet, eat healthier. All the good things really do work, because that's why, they're good things, right? Eating vegetables. You tell the difference mentally if I have McDonald's versus if I ate vegetables at this point. Maybe not in your 20s, but eventually you start to go, wow, there's ways to like do better for yourself. So use those things to your advantage, like without having to go too far down the self-help stuff of like how I was with alcohol, right? That was mine. Some people, pills or whatever. Well, before all that, we have things at our disposal, and that's just making yourself physically set yourself up physically in a way that will help the mental. So you can kind of work through that free stuff, right? The stuff you can do, and then maybe start bringing in outside influencing. But mine was literally just sticking to a calendar, keeping myself occupied, idle hands, idle thoughts. It does make sense. Instead of waking up going, am I going to have this feeling today? And then you kind of analyze that the whole day. I'm just going to wake up, even if I have whatever, just get busy. And I think the busyness helps me. That helped me with a lot with that transition. But staying busy, not just for busy's sake, it was intentional, right? I had stuff to accomplish to get this business up. I had to read. I had to go work out. I had to go to church that week. I had to do, this stuff that I knew innately I had to do, right? And just stuff that relates to my passions. I started, going out and golfing again and luckily I had my best friend from growing up. He was my best man. He was here. He was kind of the one who told us about Wilmington, North Carolina. We were just knew we had to get back east and we didn't want to go back to the snow because we're both Northeastern. I was Cleveland, she was Pittsburgh. So it helped having him because now I was going back out and seeing people like in LA. I would not, the only time I went out was with like other movie people trying to network. It was more of like, hey, Dan, I can go out there and have a beer and talk with people that were his friends and became my friends. And you start to have a little bit more of a community that you start opening up to and sharing stuff. So like just that stuff really helped. But yeah, I would say just first things first, write down what your passions are, write down the stuff you should be doing, i.e. eating healthy, working out, meditating, the big three. And then start to just hold yourself accountable. And when those feelings come, what you really got to do is just, again, get busy minded or go and meditate or go out and just scream as loud as you want in a pillow, get into a book. There's just a lot of distraction stuff that's positive. The last thing you want to do, though, is just sit there and watch TV and go and keep getting idle and weird thoughts and bad thoughts. I mean, at one point, like I was freaked out that there was only 4 seasons and I couldn't get my head wrapped around it. And I was just freaking out all day over that. It's like, what? So like, that's where your mind goes, though. I mean, it's weird stuff, man.
Yeah, the thing about I'd like to play off and hear anything else you want to say about that, about just getting busy. It makes me think of both Dr. Teresa Mabelay's research on small wins, and then good old Tony Robbins saying over and over about the key to happiness is progress. And so you've talked a couple of times about being really intentional about different things. And yeah, I think one of the practices for getting out of that that slump, that rug pulled out from under us kind of thing, is that intentional, like get those small wins in to get that momentum and feel like, yes, I'm accomplishing something. Anything else you want to say about your experience with that?
I think that is spot on. I mean, leave it to Robbins. But it's like literally it's such a again, it goes back to my calendaring. That relates exactly what I'm saying there is having those little check boxes. I'm going to accomplish this. Oh, I did. It's like you even if you have like, I'm going to go and get, this house cleaned up, or I'm going to go and get my yard in order again, or things that you might have neglected around the house, even that becomes a nice to do for you that week. There's plenty of things that again, will make you feel like, yeah, progress. And it does subconsciously help with lifting this weight off. The subconscious is crazy. And I would also say volunteering. We started going back to volunteering. Food bank. My wife and I love doing the food bank, and we love doing the Good Shepherd Center, which is where you give the meals. You actually serve the meals. And so I had started doing that with her. And then I joined the Knights of Columbus. And I'm, now it's like forced volunteer, which I'm fine admitting that that's what I need, because literally I am all about, again, I'm still consumed with work, but now with my little son, I like to either do work or hang with him. Like that's pretty much it. Right. So like, if it's not one or the other, so like, but I get my workout in every day. We try to do church online during the pandemic. We were doing that a lot. We're trying to get kind of back. I'm Eucharistic minister. So, when I'm called to go to church, at least that forces us to go physically rather than getting lazy and just doing the Canada YouTube guy. But just things like that. That's I think that's spot on though about I know I'm kind of trailing off, but I think that's phenomenal of like, yeah, have the small wins. But again, it all starts with accountability. Don't store it up here. Put it down on paper somewhere visually where you can cross it off and have that satisfaction. and those things they'll collect up, and it'll help the underbelly of your thoughts.
Yeah. I also want to loop back. So one of the things I love about volunteering, I mean, for so many reasons, but is a recommendation to people who are going through difficult transition is you think about your own experience with it. It really shifts one's identity. So instead of feeling like it's got the big L on the forehead, like I got fired or laid off or whatever, it's like I'm actually somebody who's helping other people. I'm not
Right.
just asking my network for help for connections and things. It's like I'm helping other people,
Mm-hmm.
which,
Self-satisfaction. Yep.
yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
curious, also to kind of loop back to your other really good point about um, like connecting with community. So going golfing with your buddy and connecting up with a bigger circle of friends. So it's not just, you in your apartment or house, trying to get
Right.
things going. Other things that made a difference for you in terms of shifting your sense of self and your mojo during those times.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, including that community thing, then it wasn't as broadcasted where you could find groups. I mean, we had the internet, which was perfect. So you could still use some of that resource. But now, I mean, you should see all these groups on Facebook and Reddit and I'm not talking ones that are, trying to get political or whatever, however people get. I mean, just regular, I'm bummed Facebook page or whatever. You go to these ones that are out there and people will talk to you and you can really strike up meaningful relationships with strangers online. And not that I've done that, but I can see the potential of like, yeah, if you're feeling like, down and you are in the, water skiing, go on the Facebook water skiing page and maybe express, hey, water skiers, how much we love this sport. I'm feeling down. Anyone else have these feelings sometimes? And just expose yourself a little bit. I think that it starts with telling people that you need help, right? So they always say that. So it's like, well, that's a no-brainer. So maybe, get on some of these pages where there are communities that you can really start to look forward to of having like a little conversations, here and there throughout the day. And you're like, cool, I have some like-minded people. But yeah, the sense of community, the sense of like getting out there, talking with other people, that is a huge caveat to having success with overcoming the maybe anxieties, fears, etc. Because when you're alone, again, idle hands, idle thoughts, even if you keep busy and you're alone all day, you're gonna talk to yourself with some negativity, I'm assuming, if you're going through that stuff. So having other people where you can not only maybe talk about your feelings to get over them, but also just talk about other stuff where you're not talking about mind stuff, right? So now maybe that'll get you going too, because you're like, oh, I forgot about my problem for 3 hours. And that's another big one. I remember my chunks were dictated by how much time to the day I devote to this stuff in my mind, my mental real estate, where it got to the point where there was no time in the day anymore. Now it's like if I have a little bit of a feeling, if I'm hungover or something, it'll kind of get to me a little bit like, you did bad. And you got to, I'm always beating the heck out of myself, which I'll never lose. But I find that those days are less, so you kind of get there where you're like, cool, I can go and not have to think about mental stuff all week because I'm just worried about work and my son and life. It gets busy again. And you can get there, but you got to definitely, I always say when you have these kind of mental breakdown type stuff or transitions, which we all can do, it's like it's like you inside is telling you to wake up a little. You got to change some stuff. Not everybody. Some people are just diagnosed. I mean, again, I'm not clinical.
Yeah.
There's some depths that, I mean, I pray for those people all the time because I know, but the majority of us who just get caught up in the stress stuff that kind of kicks on this behavior, you could still control this stuff. I mean, it becomes an animal, but you could do it.
Yeah. And I like that point that you made about making sure you carve out time for talking about stuff other than what's bothering you. It
Yeah.
makes me, and connecting with people. I think you said water skiing, like connecting with people with like-minded interests. So again, you're not just defining yourself as like this person who's out of work and is trying to find a job. Whether it's volunteering, you're like, I'm also somebody who helps other people. And I'm also
Mhm.
somebody who's fun and goes hiking or goes to the gym and hangs out and has fun conversations around that.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.